all this stuff that's been going on 2 meters for 4 going on 5 days, and the weather pattern that has contributed to it. I keep thinking somebody's going to write something somewhere and make mention of it because it's crazy. This morning, I saw on FT8, I was monitoring, and I work both of these guys, but I'm kind of in the middle. I saw WQ0P in Kansas work W1VD in Connecticut. That's a 1,500-mile contact, literally halfway across the country on 2-meter simplex. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Well, again, everybody, well, you're talking FT8, and the world has changed, so would these conditions exist if you were trying to do it on sideband and CW in August? I bet not.
Well, hey guys. FT8 is very effective with weak signals, but it would not have created the band opening. The band opening is, something unrelated to FT8 per se. It's the same things that influence the weather influence VHF propagation. But when the propagation enhancement is present, as it has been for the last few days, FT8 really takes advantage. I mean, those contacts could be made on sideband or CW, but it'd be a whole lot harder.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. The ease of the contact with FT8 versus if you were trying to do that on sideband or CW, I bet it would be a lot more difficult.
Oh, it would be, because I can speak about that with some experience, having gotten on 2-meter sideband in 1975 and really very active through about 2000. That's a 25-year period. And then when we got moved here, I was still on 2-meter sideband, but not as often. I was starting to get bored with it because I had worked 40 states and it was tough to work anything new. So I stayed with it to about somewhere between 2010 and 2012. So around between 2010 and 2012, I got bored, took the 2-meter antenna off the tower, and kept missing it. This is N4KZ. Go ahead and ID, and I'll continue.
Roger, N4ME.
AC4TF.
Well, there he is. How you doing, kid?
Hey guys, how's it going? There's one other quick thing. The nice thing about FT8, I was a late adopter of it, but I have to admit there's a lot of good things. And one of the good things is it kind of channelizes things so that you discover openings that might not otherwise be discovered because everybody's, listening in the same place. So that's another helpful thing on the VHF front. And hello, Mark. It's been a long time since I've heard your voice. You're booming in, not surprisingly here, but great to catch up with you both. AC4TO, thanks for letting an interloper in.
You're welcome anytime, man. Weekly we get together, but we can never tell what the conditions are, so half the time during the summer we're on cell phone.
Well, you guys are both very loud here. So obviously tonight's a good night.
Again, you make a very good point, and that is with FT8, everybody's basically on the same frequency. Because in the sideband CW days, people were spread all over the bottom 200, 250 kilohertz at 2 meters, and it made finding signals more challenging. With FT8, that challenge isn't really there.
Well, and there's a record of it even if you're away. If you step away or even come back a half hour later and you see, wow, N4KZ was in from Kentucky. The band must be open in some way. You can start making noise and exploring, and again, because everybody's listening, because really I think the same happens on 6 meters. I would argue on 6 meters, the need for, the old beacons, CW beacons is zero now because you have very high ERP people in because of the channelization aspect of FT8 for VHF.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point. That's a good point. Excuse me. A couple of weeks ago, during the Perseus, I had gotten a burst one morning on FT8 of all things from NY2NY on Long Island, New York. He's better known by his old call, K2OBS, Jay Buscemi, who has been very active on VHF for years. And I'm still surprised that K2OBS changed his call to NY2NY, but I had heard him on a single burst on FT8 a couple of weeks ago, but I worked him this morning. He answered my CQ, so that was a real treat.
Yeah, that is neat stuff. Well, congrats. Glad you're having fun with it. You know, and something else I was going to mention real quick. You know, there are a couple sites which I'm not sure either you're not aware or whatever, but the ON4KST, you know, has a series of chat pages which to me are indispensable for folks who are interested in VHF DXing. There's a region 2 50 megahertz page, which of course people from all over the world are on that. It's not just North America and South America. And then there's a region 1, 50 and 70 megahertz, since they have 4 meters in many parts of the world, Europe, etc. And then they have a 2 meter and UHF page, chat page, you know, for region 2 as well. So there's a lot of people that, you know, are connecting and discussing what's going on 2 meters there. And of course there's Ping Jockey as well. But the ON4KST pages are, to me, they're indispensable.
Well, yeah, I have looked at ON4KST in the past. I've got it bookmarked on my computer. I have not looked at it in a very long time, which means I've been doing all this operating since Friday night, up to about 130 QSOs with a whole bunch of, up to 28 states now, and 89 grids worked, 65 of them confirmed. Even though as I said, I'm a dinosaur. I've never really been very excited by grid squares. I like counting states. It was the standard in use when I got into weak signal VHF in 1975. You know, QNT used to print the standings for the state totals on the various VHF bands, and I got very excited about that. In '83, when grid squares were introduced in North America, my attitude was ho-hum, and I understand their purpose, and I understand, you know, the guys out west were penalized because the states were so huge. You could work 30 states back east and only work 15 states out west, covering the same size area, but a huge disparity in the state totals. So I get it, but I still don't get excited about grid squares. But I guess now that I'm using a good logging program, I can keep track of those things a lot better. I used to have a map, and I would color in the ones I'd worked. I guess at one point in the 80s and 90s, when I was most active on 2 sideband, I think I was up to like 200 grid squares or something like that. Everything I worked, I colored red, and the map pretty much was totally red over the eastern 2/3 of the country back then. Still don't get excited about grid squares, but anyway, it's something else to track, and it's easier now with the logging program. I don't have to color anything in. So anyway, lots of fun. I sure didn't expect this big opening to occur. Have you listened on 2 meters, Ken? Because I've not heard anybody in Florida. I don't know that the Trofo has reached down your way. Go ahead.
AC4TO, you know, I don't think it has. I don't think it's gotten down here. Although